with me three very good speakers on the subject. It gives me pleasure to invite Khalifa Alshamsi, CEO of E&D International and E&D Life, to join us here on the stage. A warm round of applause for him. Daniel Gallagher, the Chief Legal Compliance and Corporate Affairs Officer at Robinhood. Welcome, Daniel. And Ashish Koshy, the CEO of Inception. A digital lifestyle is something that 30 years ago would have been a very, very alien term. It would have been the equivalent of considering to land on Mars. But we all live digital lifestyles. And if you look across this room, 70% of the people are looking into their screens. I will also look into my handset screen as we have this conversation. But Khalifa Al-Shamsi, I want to start with you. Your company, your network, has built the pipe on which the entire digital stack layer is being now rolled out by third parties and now even AI. The question really to you is, telecom companies are no longer pipes. They enable everything. Without a great mobile broadband network, you would not even be discussing this term. What does a digital lifestyle mean to you, and how is it relevant for your customers and how you serve them?
So 3 years ago, I would have accepted this type of question to me. But today, after our 2022 bold vision to transform the company from a telecom-centered company into a technology global company, we honor our pipe, we love our pipe, we make it faster, bigger, flourishing to enable others. But at the same time, we are also investors in technology platform that enable our consumer services, enterprise services, and government services. So the role has evolved, knowing the influence that we would like to do is beyond just the being the telecom service provider, coverage, speed, capacity, distribution related to that. So going from there, I think before we talk about ourselves,
yes,
any of us about ourselves, I mean, given the government, we're talking about the government summit. The question is, especially when you talk about, the global south, as we were talking about it in the last session, what is the role of governments to accelerate adoption of technology among its citizens, among the companies, among investors that they're coming to come? And I think that's what make digital company attract to a certain destination. And if we look at India,
yes,
Brazil, China, we look at platforms that have been developed by the government to ensure acceleration of development of platform, making it happen. I mean, UPI of India is a global reference of how the country with low penetration of banking can transform over the years as one of the highest banking accounts, can take down cost of sending money whether locally or internationally in no time. Similarly to PIX in Brazil, what they have been. So the governments have a role to deploy solutions, infrastructure, and policies and processes in order for our companies can do. I mean, today we're in the telecom domain, but we're also having a fintech domain through our presence in WEO Bank, the most successful digital bank in the region. Our Money, the fintech based here in the UAE. You might not have one of the food delivery company, but Kareem from our side is also a delivery company that's operating and benefit from infrastructure, government-related policies and procedures.
Okay, that's a good point there. We have got a perspective from what started off as a telecom company. Many of you would be aware of the history of this company. Daniel, I'm coming to you. You've democratized access to investing. And that's why your brand is part of folklore now. Obviously, you wouldn't have been able to do it without the stack and the connectivity. And the point that he just made, giving us an example of a system that's working for 1.4 billion people. So clearly it is a very significant one. How do you see the evolution of what we are calling in this session a digital lifestyle?
Well, first of all, it's a real honor to be here. Thanks for having me. This conference is incredible. Robinhood is probably well known to some of you. We're not yet in this region, but I'm not here for my health, so hopefully someday. In the United States, we have about 27 million customers on the platform. And I loved your question about what the government should do to empower this sort of transformation. The Robinhood founders, Baiju Bhatt and Vlad Tenev, had this idea in 2013. Let's build a brokerage firm, a financial services firm, in an app, right? Instead of having a bricks and mortar building with brokers in it that meet with people, instead of having a website where you go and log on and having that be translated into an app, they actually built the whole firm as an app. And when they did that, they met the younger generation where they were. They were doing everything on their phone, and it was picking up steam. So that's why it was a more seamless experience. The design was better. It was, captured the imagination, and it got people into the markets. And then also, no fees, no account minimums, all those frictions that had been in financial services, they were able to overcome through the use of technology. The government didn't help. I can tell you that much. And that's why in the US we talk a lot about, in Silicon Valley, the disruptors. And a lot of that means disrupting the governmental structures, the existing structures, which tend to favor the incumbents because they're the ones who have created the rules. And so it hasn't been an easy ride for Robinhood, especially during the last administration. It was a very, very tough regulatory climate. But we've persevered, and now we're in a position now where the rules are changing to accommodate the business model instead of, enforcement actions being brought against us because we don't exactly fit the way the rule book was written 80 years ago. So, and then you've seen so many competitors, new upstarts try to replicate the model. They're doing very well. There's plenty of room for everyone.
Absolutely.
The incumbents are trying to build apps that look like ours. That doesn't work, but they're trying. And so just a whole new way of investing. Our median age of our customers is 35. They're young, but they're growing in their expectations. They're in the markets where they might not have been before, and it's all because of technology.
And living inside an app is, again, many of you might be experiencing that, but of course, if you have a real world personal assistants and haven't moved to an AI agent world, you know how significant it is. The man who is now going to speak represents the great disruptor. Their AI is disrupting everything, and we have seen in the past 3 days what it has done to the valuations of IT companies, for example. Tens of billions of dollars gone, yet we don't know. When I talk to CEOs across the world, and just a couple of weeks ago at Davos, when I asked them what is the level of productivity that you've gotten on account of deploying AI, the best number I heard was 25%, most said 10 to 12%. So, Ashish, on that, how does AI and what you do fit into taking forward the evolution of the digital lifestyle?
Thank you for having me here, first of all, and just for quick context for the audience, so I represent Inception, which is the AI arm within G42, so no pressure there. So we are the AI product / model / platform entity, and we work with different entities, different verticals, all the way from energy, oil, investments, including, if you've seen in Abu Dhabi, there's a lot of agents that are running boards. That's all us at the background building it. Now, talking about with that context, including the push for UAE to become a AI native organization, an AI agent native organization, we are at the crux of it. From the question that you asked on how does that roll out into a design a lifestyle? I know there was a question or a comment from one of the speakers on stuck to mobile apps. I think the age is gone from working with menus, interfaces. It's eventually intent, and you would have your agents running it. And you can see in not just the Anthropic announcement, you would see there's the open Claude conversation where citizens, consumers, their expectations are everything can be run in a finger on one hand, one finger on your mobile phone with intent. translate that into a gap of AI readiness, which Khalifa and team are fundamental, foundation rocks for the infrastructure. But that readiness shouldn't be just about the lifestyle and experience running agents. There's sovereignty, there is compute, there's the intent, there's the entire agentic infrastructure, which the private sector, I think, are running prototypes at scale. But I think that has to be matched with the intent of the government from a public sector to match that with what citizens and consumers would need. To your question, we are a product building company. The hardest part is to get an answer that a chairman and a CEO would like, because his perspective is completely different from his chief of staff that has designed it. That is the challenge, and I think each individual should make his own agent as opposed to expecting an IT manager or an engineering manager to fine-tune a prompt or response that would be fit enough for a Khalifa or for myself. I think that's what I am doing, and that's the mandate that has been put across by our group CEO also. Every individual needs to create his own agent and have a digital twin within the organization.
That's a very good point that Ashish makes. I wonder how many of you have experienced this yourself here. IT, as we traditionally know it, is something that the board and the management team outsources to the CTO. He decides what to deploy, what to acquire, and then there are users. But the point that Ashish is making is AI will need everyone in the organization, starting from the CEO, to imbibe it.
If I can just finish your point on the global collapse of the software as a service industry.
Yes.
2026, as we all recognize it's going to be an uncomfortable year. It's the speed at which everything is changing, geopolitical tensions, speed at which technology is changing, speed at which fiscal pressure is increasing. But the common thing across that is the speed of which we need to adopt AI, and this point on the experience that the consumers and citizens get. So when you see an announcement, hey, Anthropic or any other model company coming up with a legal AI solution, there is panic. I think if you have conviction in your products work across verticals, and I think there was a point that the previous speaker mentioned, institutionalized memory, I think that's your secret sauce. Keep that close to your heart and work with the other models to provide the solutions.
Okay. I'm going to toss the same question to all three of you, and I'll start with you, Khalifa, once again. And this is because you touched upon it and you brought in the UPI example. As we have seen in the recent past, developing economies, emerging economies, let's say India or the Gulf region where we are, and you can see that vibe in the air, you see growth and optimism, and you of course see construction all around you. When you go to the developed world, you realize that maybe it's plateaued and things are continuing pretty well, but the level of growth that we see in these markets is something that they would pay. What lessons should we as developing economies keep in mind and avoid the mistakes that happened in the developed world, particularly around cost of access, as well as the regulation that Daniel spoke about, and algorithmic bias? I'll come on that point to you, Ashish. Khalifa, please.
So again, I mean, you will find across this region and the world the need for services to be coming across the whole population of the market. Some of the developed market, you will see focus on certain class of citizens and residents, whereby you will find does not address some of the majority of the other population of these markets. And this part of the world comes also from the leadership of the region itself, the belief on inclusion, whether it comes to the basic needs such as food and education, but also when it comes to digital adoptions. We ticked the box when it comes to connectivity inclusion years before, where we make sure everybody have access to connectivity, to data, to internet access, and therefore to learning and development. But when you look at financial inclusion, which is a gap that you'll see it in a lot of the developed market, by virtue of everybody focus on the certain segments, and then they forget about the lower segment, whether the blue-collar workers or the underbanked or non-banked user. This is something that, giving the infrastructure that's available in the country, giving the leadership vision, given our ability, for example, as a player that we address the whole population, then we said, you know what, we will double down on financial inclusion and we'll make sure that we add value both to the end user, to the country itself, because when everybody is connected to the financial institutes and having different type of financial services, the end user will benefit, the country will benefit, and we will also benefit. And this is where we double down on our fintech solution across providing every single user in the country with the valid Emirates ID into instant adoption of such fintech solution. It helped the UAE have a UAE Pass, which is a digital identity platform, allow everybody to be onboarded instantly. Of course, the Emirates ID behind it. And then at the same time, we do our own KYC, and this is where, I mean, we operate in 20 countries right now.
Yes.
UAE, one of the most advanced out of those. But in other countries, we struggle with the eKYC. There is no eKYC or eKYB. And for that, we see the struggle that happens by, going physically into a shop and doing that. So the ask that for a lot of the governments around the world that will help, digital bank, fintech, wealth management type of solution and others, adopting some infrastructure like eKYC to allow for an instant adoption. And then when the government also allow data to be shared, whether through open finance, open banking type of protocols, will allow, if you are a bank, you don't own the user. Today, if you are a bank, you own the user, you own his data, you own his history and spending, and guess what? You want a loan? You only can take it from me. But if the market is open, it will allow the platform that is centrally managed, reads all of the infrastructure and all the data allowed, and be able for the end user to choose and pick and choose where do they go and what do they do also with their data, even for non-relevant. There is a credit scoring, there is a risk scoring, and this allows for that to evolve. So I see here in the regions, whether in this region or the emerging markets region, we can leapfrog a lot faster by giving up on some of the old bureaucracy that it sits
Right.
and in the control given by, let's say, large institute that is to their benefit, make the transaction slower and most expensive, and encourage giving the users choices. And I always believe that worker, blue-collar worker that's building that mansion in the palm, I would like him to own a fraction of that mansion by virtue of trading through that and making money from the appreciation. This is where a true inclusion happens, where everybody benefits from the development of the market that they're in.
Everybody should benefit. That's the central message. And I recall an example from Africa. Many years ago, M-Pesa, a micropayment service, and how that really took off in a market that was still evolving. Daniel, that's a very point to you, and then to you, Ashish. Step in.
And I want that blue-collar worker to do it through his Robinhood account, too. So that would be fantastic.
We have WIO Invest, which is leading in the UAE.
It's hard for me. So I have a financial services background and perspective with this question. And it's hard for me to come here and say, let me tell you how it should be done from the United States perspective. I think, especially here in Dubai and Abu Dhabi, how proactive policymakers have been with respect to financial services and new technologies is incredible. I mean, it really is just the global standard, I would say, for getting ahead of issues, not getting behind. The regulatory competition you have here amongst Abu Dhabi and Dubai and for our purposes, the new CMA, formerly ESCA, they're challenging each other, they're staying abreast of developments, and I think it's really a great example. The converse of it is and I'll use one topic, crypto in particular. You think about cryptocurrencies here in Dubai, it's an old story. I mean, you've had VARA created to deal specifically with crypto. You've had the other regulators adapting. DFSA just came out with new guidelines on crypto to make it a more crypto-friendly environment for their registrants. And in the United States, where big portions of crypto originated, it all had to go offshore because there's no competent regulatory scheme, there's no federal regulatory scheme, and in fact, there was antipathy towards the industry. There was a 4-year period under the last administration where it was enforcement first, lawsuits, and no policy making. And if you think about it, it's not just that lost 4-year period. Now the U.S. is trying to legislate. Now we're trying to regulate, but these policymakers don't have any experience with the product. There's no savvy behind the regulation. There's no understanding of the technology that's going to keep us at the forefront. And I fear for crypto in the US, we've lost so much ground, it's going to be hard to get it back.
It's not a good week to talk about crypto this week.
Yeah, yeah, I know. Dear Lord, crypto and AI, the subjects of the markets these days. So my advice would be keep it up and stay scrappy in the sense of, you can say it's developing nations, but I think the policies are well developed, quite frankly. I think, India can learn a lot from this region.
Yes.
Right, which I think they are, quite frankly. Northern Africa and the like. And in the United States, we have lessons to learn too when it comes to, staying abreast, hiring and maintaining policymakers and even the bureaucrats that actually understand the things they're trying to regulate.
Ashish.
How would emerging markets leapfrog? Before I just answer that, I want to ensure also that we throw in our product. We've got BOTIM for the blue-collar worker to work on those mansions within G42. But I think UAE is doing it in terms of leapfrogging. Leapfrogging, as Khalifa has mentioned, it's just not just fast-tracking the step and copying what developed nations is, skipping those mistakes. And that's essential. And here, I think we are an AI native as an organization. We had a university of AI when it didn't exist. People questioned that, thought that forward thinking is essential. We had the first AI minister. Inclusion is a point that's critical. Though we work with these foundation models, how do you make that localized and culturally sensitive? That inclusion to me is financial inclusion, but also if my grandmother cannot use that particular app without my help, that is inclusion. Right now, you have the Department of Government Enablement in Abu Dhabi where you have elderly people who can speak to, in their local dialect, take a picture, and without clicking all those buttons, get the things done. And that, to me, is digital, the new digital lifestyle, where you can reduce, from a public sector, reduce the stress. If a product can reduce the stress in the public sector, that's a killer product. For the consumer, if you can reduce the steps to hit your decision, that's your part. And I do believe, I think we are at the forefront of driving that collectively in the UAE. Algorithmic bias is solved through localization that we're currently working with those frontier models. We've got amazing payment gateways. We've got digital identity. The combination of all that together and focusing collectively, both public and private, to build that decision intelligence layer so you can roll out these agents to work as delegates. That is the future, as opposed to having a complicated interface and FAQs on how to reach your end outcome by 200 clicks. That, I do believe, is the future of where we are going towards, both consumer and citizens.
I'm glad you brought that up because that was the final point that I wanted in the 6 odd minutes that we have left on this session to sort of get all of you to look at the future. So I'm going to come back to you, Khalifa, and sort of give us a sense 5 years down the line of what the average digital consumer would look like. And this is very important for business. We just did in Business Today, in the India Today group in India, one of the largest Gen Z surveys. We tried to understand, and digital adoption was a core part of that, and we got some fascinating insights from that. So I want you to look ahead for us, because if you were to look back 30 years ago when you started rolling out networks at Etisalat, at the experience then, to what it may be in 5 years from now, 5 or 10, take a pick.
Nobody can predict 10 for sure. I mean,
yeah, it's tough, maybe.
Even 5 will be a little bit challenging. 3 is reasonable.
Okay.
So on this context of what we're talking about, definitely the rate would be acceleration of adoption by virtue of simplicity, by virtue of personalization. Some of your transaction, especially when it's to commerce, will come AI-infused transactional commerce that it will also enable. It will be cuts across all the population and segments. I mean, today I'm not worrying only about the UAE market. I'm worrying about my 19 others from Ivory Coast, Benin, Morocco, Serbia, Bulgaria, Afghanistan, Pakistan. So the question is, how do we accelerate adoption for a lot of the digital platform that we have when it comes to fintech type of solution, entertainment, or the various type of super apps that we're deploying, the key is how do we make it simple? I mean, today we have it in a lot of the markets through so many different languages, but how do we accelerate simplification? So when I explain it to your mother or grandmother, it will be simple. Not only simple to understand, but simple to transact. And this is where the agentic AI will play a big role at this one. So you don't need to be an expert. You just need to know what you want and then take you through that experience. Today,
allow me a quick interjection. Is the future of a super app, or is the future agent that you just speak to, which will also allow you to overcome barriers of literacy?
definitely, I mean, agentic will navigate through the various type of standalone islands of app that it exists today. So this is a belief that we have. But even within the format of some app, maybe it's super for a specific context. So when you have Money that we're positioning it as a financial services super app, but it's within that domain rather than cuts across so many different area. The aim is to really leverage on the capability that we have. I mean, we're blessed, serving more than 250 million users, cuts across, again, from east to west. That data, that knowledge, that personalization and localization that we can do will allow us also to enable our own platform, but also enable with others, enable banking partners, enable investment partner, enable real estate partner, to be able to leverage on the strength that we have to penetrate more service. And hopefully all of this move will identify the priority of the countries that we operate in and reach it, and also will help these economies accelerate and grow.
Yeah, I think from a financial services perspective, again, in 5 years, there will be financial services super apps. That's one of our goals at Robinhood. Your whole financial life should be on one app. You should have all financial related products there. They should all be tokenized, which is a big push here, obviously, in the UAE. We're pushing for that in the United States too. It should be 24/7. You shouldn't trade by appointment like some of the markets work today, regardless of product. Product should include tokenized real-world assets, maybe a piece of that house you talked about, cars, watches, whatever you can tokenize as a real-world asset should be in that super app. And undoubtedly, navigating that app itself, even without going to multiple apps, should be enabled through agentic AI. I mean, folks are going to need help. One of the problems we have across the globe, and in the United States too, is financial literacy. And with the rise of AI, no one should be financially illiterate, right? You should get that advice you need.
I have a slightly, I agree with both the panelists. I don't think we can, figure out what's going to happen in 5 to 10 years. I don't think we can figure out what's going to happen in 2026. But with that said, I don't think it's going to be a super app. I do believe you're going to have a relationship manager or a concierge in your pocket. You just needed to tell it what to do. And with the right intent, and it comes back, accesses all the apps on the right permissions to provide you the results. And that's the new digital interface where you talk with your intention, it knows what you want, and we're getting there. You can see all the latest developments of slowly getting there, but you would see a humongous improvement on the regulations to catch up, to ensure it's safe, it is explainable, it's transparent, and ensure citizens have the right to be in the loop to ensure your concierge or your relationship manager, whether he wants to work on a government service or book a ticket or fly to Finland or all of the above, by just accessing all the apps across through this agentic framework.
Just a minute left, and since we have that, I wonder, what kind of pressures this would put on a traditional telco in terms of continuously investing and upgrading their network. When I talk to telecom CEOs, this is one of their biggest sore points.
So definitely now, the old days, our network is used for our own self to develop solution based on voice and data type of services. Today, our network is being used to enable countries in building their AI factories, in order to connect hyperscalers also on the various market to deliver best-in-class services based on very extreme low latency, not utilizing our network in the country, but our global connectivity. So now we have different type of conversation
Yes.
with different traditional, and that require a lot of investment, which is in the UAE, we're best in class in terms of fastest network in the world, fixed mobile, and fastest fiber penetration. How can we take that from a UAE where there is the affordability into Egypt, Pakistan, Morocco, and other with a cost effective? So this is what's keeping us awake at night.
Okay. Daniel, did you have one last comment?
No.
Okay. I have one quick question. How many, do you use an agent in your personal life?
Every day.
Daniel?
Not enough.
Multiple agents.
Okay, so if I were to go across this room and just for once, raise your hand if you use an agent in your personal life to help you solve anything or do anything, any transaction. Okay, so that's the future. That's the future of the digital lifestyle. Khalifa, Daniel, Ashish, thank you very much for your time with us today. A round of applause for this wonderful panel.
If you like the video, do like, comment, share and subscribe.